In this class, we will learn the Gemara Masechtas Bava Kama on Daf Nun Hey Amud Beis. Let's begin with a general outline of this class. The Mishnah taught that if a person properly locked his pen and his sheep escaped and caused damage, he is patur. And if he did not lock it properly, he is chayiv. So in other words, the determining factor of whether a person is chayiv or patur for the damage that his sheep caused is if the person locked the pen properly. That means he did his job and he will be patur. However, if he did not lock the pen properly, it means he did not do his job and he will be chayiv. So there are two parts to the Gemara. Number one, the Gemara will discuss what's considered locked properly. We're saying that the determining factor is whether the pen was locked properly. What does it mean by locked properly? To what extent? What degree? To what level does the person have to secure the pen so that it should be considered properly? And number two, which comes out of what we learned in number one, is the Gemara will discuss which opinion our Mishnah follows in regards to this. Once we explain what our Mishnah means by locked properly, the Gemara will explore who is the author of our Mishnah that holds of this opinion. So let's see the Gemara now in the flowchart form. The Mishnah taught that based on whether a person locked his pen properly or not, he will be chayev or patur for damages. So says the Gemara, and it's in a purple arrow pointing upwards because it's explaining what the Mishnah means. So it says we learned in a brisa, and as we'll see, the words of the brisa will be in red and green since the brisa presents the teaching in a question-answer form. So we learned in a brisa what's considered properly and what's considered not properly. And the brisa continues and explains a door that can stand in a normal wind, that is considered properly, and a door that cannot stand in a normal wind, that is considered not properly. So now we know what our Mishnah means when it says the person has to secure the pen properly and then he will be patur. It means that the door of the pen is able to stand even when there is the blowing of a normal wind. However, if it can't stand in the face of the blowing of a normal wind, then it's considered that he did not lock the pen properly. And now once we established what is the standard in the Mishnah, the Gemara continues on and presents a teaching. And again, this teaching is going to be in a question-answer format, and therefore the words will be in red and green. But being that it's a teaching, and it just comes out of what we said, it's in a purple arrow pointing upwards. Rav Mani bar Patish said, who is the one that holds that a lesser form of guarding is enough? What do we mean by a lesser form of guarding? So that'll come up in a scroll. It's called lesser when it can only stand in the face of a normal wind, because elsewhere we learned that lesser is when it can only stand in a normal wind, and superior is when it can stand even in an out of the ordinary wind. So in other words, by explaining that our Mishnah says that if the door can stand in the face of a normal wind, that's considered that it's locked properly, and that's enough, shows that our Mishnah holds that a lesser form of guarding is enough. It's not necessary to have a superior form of guarding, that the door can not only withstand the blowing of a normal wind, it could even withstand the blowing of a wind that's out of the ordinary. So who is the author of our Mishnah that says that even a lesser form of guarding is enough? And Rav Mani explains, it's Rabbi Yehuda. So now we brought down this teaching in extension to what we learned beforehand. And now the Gemara is going to present where we find this teaching of Rabbi Yehuda. So the Gemara says, and again it's in a purple arrow pointing upwards because it's coming out of what we just mentioned, that it's Rabbi Yehuda. So out of there we're presenting the source. We learned in a Mishnah, if an owner tied his ox with a rein or locked it in properly and it got out and damaged, so we're going to focus in that he locked it in properly, meaning in a pen, in a holding area that could withstand the blowing of a normal wind, but not of an out of the ordinary wind. So in that case, there are three opinions. The Reb Meir says he is chayiv by a tam and a muad. It's not enough for a tam or muad. For both a tam and a muad, it's necessary to have a superior guarding. The pen, the holding area, has to be able to withstand the blowing of an out of the ordinary wind. Rabbi Yehuda says by a tam he's chayiv. It's not enough for a tam. By a muad he's patur. Now why would a person be patur by a muad? Usually by a muad we're more strict, since the animal is more likely to attack. So we're not going to explain this at length. It's brought down from a Gemara elsewhere, but we'll mention it briefly. For it says by a muad v'lo yishmerna balav. By a muad, the Torah says, why is the owner chayiv? Because he did not watch it. So only if he did not watch it is chayiv, but if he did watch it, it'll be patur. So over here, and he watched it, and therefore he will be patur. So Rabbi Meir says he's chayiv for a tam and a muad since he needs a superior guarding. Rabbi Yehuda says the lesser guarding is enough, and Rabbi Eliezer is the most strict. He says the only solution is to shecht it because a person is always chayiv for a muad. So we have three opinions. We'll go from the lowest to the highest. Rabbi Yehuda says a lesser form of guarding is enough for a muad. Rabbi Meir says it's necessary to have a superior form of guarding for both a tam and a muad. And Rabbi Lezer holds that there is no sufficient guarding for a mu'ud. If a person has a mu'ud animal, if it ever attacks, he will have to pay for the damages. There will never be an exception. And the only solution, if the person doesn't want to ever have to pay for damages, is to shech the animal. So how do we see from here that the author of our Mishnah is Rabbi Yehuda? So we'll bring that up in a scroll. And since, one, Rabbi Yehuda holds a lesser form of guarding is enough for a mu'ud. So we have that in place. Number two, our Mishnah talks about sheep. Our Mishnah speaks about Hakoines tzayin ladir, sheep, that only damage through shein and regel, but not keren. Keren, goring, is an act of an ox, of a cow, not of a sheep. So sheep only have shein and regel. And number three, shein and regel are always mu'ud because they are normal and expected behaviors. Shein and regel are mu'ud from the very start, like we said in the introduction. So Rabbi Yehuda holds for a mu'ud a lesser form of guarding is enough. And our Mishnah speaks about shein and regel that are mu'ud. So that's the conclusion. Therefore, it comes out that our Mishnah that teaches that a lesser form of guarding is enough for a mu'ud follows Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yehuda says a lesser form of guarding is enough for a mu'ud. And our Mishnah says that for shein and regel, which are a mu'ud, a lesser form of guarding is enough. So that's how we see that the author of our Mishnah is Rabbi Yehuda. So to summarize, our Mishnah said that the determining factor is whether the person watched over his animal properly. We brought down a brisa that explained that properly is whether if the pen could withstand the blowing of a regular ordinary wind. And then we went on to say who is the author of our Mishnah that says that that's enough guarding, that it could withstand the blowing of just a regular wind. And we said that that's the opinion of Rabbi Yehuda, and we brought down where we find that Rabbi Yehuda says this.